They're not, standing at the door for people of color saying, "Hey guys, it's over here."
Come on in.
The door's open. That's not happening. Welcome to Career Plug. Hi, it's Gene with Career Plug. I want to welcome my first guest. This is a very special individual to me. He is located in the nation's capital. He is my best friend. I consider him my brother. I have known him for about 30 years. So what I'm doing for my audience at Career Plug, I want to bring on great guests. I'm going to tap my resources for you guys. Uh, with that said, Sanders Adu joins me from Washington, D.C. He is a senior lobbyist at Wells Fargo. How are you today, Sanders?
Gene, I am doing well, my friend. Great to be the first guest on the Career Plug. Looking forward to the conversation.
Good, good, good. Yes, yeah. Thanks. We'll make this easy and light. The biggest reason I wanted to get you on here as my first guest is not only do I love you as my brother, but also you have a very interesting career. I will let you jump into that in a moment, but it's one of those careers that people have maybe heard about, but have absolutely no idea what the person does. So that will be interesting to learn. But first, let's start off with a plug question, and that is, what are you plugged into these days?
Well, first of all, Gene, I am so proud of you and Career Plug. This is going to be a fantastic resource for your audience. I mean, you have a network that is vast and wide all over the United States, really all over the world. So I think people getting insights from folks in different fields, different walks of life, I think will be invaluable. So for me, I'm really plugged into Africa, all things Africa. So as you know, my dad is born and raised in Ghana. I traveled to Africa quite a bit, and frankly, Afro beats music and the kind of the cultural movement behind Afro beats music and culture taking over really popular culture is something I'm really plugged into these days, and we kind of get more into that a little bit later.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you shoot me Afro beats music, and it's very unique. I really like it. I learned of it from you. We also traveled to Africa together,
Absolutely.
had a ball, and it was my first time on the continent, and I couldn't think of a better place than to start with Ghana and Accra. So when I hit the ground, I
Absolutely.
kissed the ground, couldn't believe I was on the continent, and wouldn't have traded that experience for anyone else. Uh, so let's jump right into sort of some of your background, your
Sure.
education. You can briefly go into that. Obviously, I know it, but you have some interesting twist, and you can just kind of decide how vast or brief you want to make that. But would just
Sure.
love to hear more about your background.
Sure, Gene. So I think the first thing to say is that my background, I've been blessed and privileged to have wonderful parents who really poured into me education and got me the best educational opportunities. I will say though, has not been a straight line. So just very briefly, I did go to public high school my entire life until 10th grade. My mom and dad heard about this boarding school over in Massachusetts, and I kind of went kicking and screaming, Phillips Academy, Andover. No one I knew had gone to boarding school, so it was a big leap for me. But going there, I think was really the foundation for the rest of my life. First of all, I learned how to really study and kind of get into a tough academic environment. But also, that's where you really
Hmm.
learn that relationships are really, really important. So some of the people I went to high school with and some of my best friends to this day. Left Andover, Phillips Academy, Andover, which, by the way, is where both President Bushes went to school, as well as John Kennedy Jr. and others. I went from there to Duke, University of North Carolina, where I had a wonderful time on campus as a public policy major. always interested in kind of policy and politics. Put that on hold a bit to graduate from Duke and then go to law school. I went to UC Berkeley for law back home. Did a year exchange program at Harvard Law, so I was able to kind of both the East Coast and West Coast law experience. But here's where I think things went a little again, not a straight line. So I worked in a law firm for a couple of years, clerk for a federal judge in New Jersey, which was great. Came back to California, was ready to kind of hit the ground running at a law firm, Heller, Irvin White, and McAuliffe. And I got fired. First and only time I've been fired from a job. It was definitely humbling. But we can get into this later. But I think that setback really then set the course for me to be where I am now. And we can talk about that in a second.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that. A great intro. Um, because I know your background, of course, I would pose probably a couple questions, but I think when I learned that you went to Andover for boarding school, I was just surprised to hear about you were the first African American man that I knew or person.
Mhm.
But I'm just a Midwest country boy for real. So um, I'm not sure that means anything, but you were the first African American I'd met that had gone to boarding school, and we met in the '90s. Yes, we are Gen Xers. I know we look like millennials, but we are Gen
We tried.
Xers. So, um, the perception is that rich kids go to boarding school, but I know that your
Mhm.
mother is from Baltimore. She is from the hood of Baltimore, grew up
Absolutely.
very tough.
Cherry
um,
Hill, Baltimore, baby.
Sugar Hill. And so she defied, of course, her own odds, and in trying to empower her only son, only child, and only son, thought outside of the box, which I think is phenomenal for someone who is almost 80 at this point to kind of had a child a little bit later than her generation, but then on top
Mhm.
of that to have that child go off to boarding school, having a foresight and vision to send her child to boarding school at 10th grade. Most parents would have been just like, first of all, it's too far, and
Right.
a very different experience, and he may get lost and who knows what will happen. But she had enough vision to do that, which um, I believed helped arm you to get into a top elite school, Duke, and begins to sort of set your path. So the lesson here, guys, is that sometimes, when your parents or whomever is your influence or whomever raised you, when they can get ahead of the curve, think outside of the box, especially for us people of color, to give you some type
Absolutely.
of opportunity or leg up to succeed in life, you should take it. If that is open and available to you, you should take it. But you went to Duke and then you did law
And Gene,
school.
on that point about Andover too, I'll say this. This is, I think, a really important point. One, it's all about exposure, right? So a lot of people, generally speaking, particularly people of color, just don't have the exposure, right? They have no idea what the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds are, or what they've done. And when
Right.
you get in those environments and you realize you can compete with those folks, it gives you a credible amount of confidence, right? So that's I think point number one. Point number two is that, as you know, life is all about connections, right? It's all about who you know. So you have to be smart, you have to work hard, but a lot of the times, it's not a completely merit based society, right? It's who you know,
That's
it's who
right.
knows you, most importantly, and that's how you're able to have opportunities, whether it's career, business, or otherwise. So I think I'm blessed to have my parents have that vision and foresight. I wish more parents would be less selfish, frankly, when it comes to their kids, and really kind of think what's best for them long term. So I'm just thankful for my parents to have had that vision.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's great. And you listen. We're not saying you don't need to score high on aptitude tests and so forth. Yes, you still you still need to do that. They're not. standing at the door for people of color saying, "Hey guys, it's over here."
Come on
You
in.
know, the door is open. That's not happening. So your mother knew that you were a gifted individual, sort of early in your life, and helped set you up to succeed. So um, Duke, then law school in California. You mentioned clerking for a judge. That was in New York. So you've zigzagged the country, uh,
Yeah.
born and raised in in California, in the Oakland area, boarding school, then college on the East Coast, and then law school on the West Coast, so back home essentially for law school. Then you and I lived together in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That is when you were at one of the top law firms, Sidley and Austin, which is the law firm that Michelle Obama worked for, if I'm correct.
And Barack Obama. Yeah, actually,
Oh yeah,
that's where
yes,
they
yes.
met.
So Barack was there. Yep. So somehow they thought, with all your credentials and background, you couldn't you couldn't make it at their law firm. I'm not. We're still trying to investigate that, but somehow they fired you.
Absolutely.
So after that, your path led to where?
Career plug on time back. I had a little technical difficulty to get myself in a better room here, better light, but I am back. And Gene, to answer your question, so what happened when I got fired? So when I was shocked, right? I had kind of had this glide path for a while, and it shocked me, but it was good because one, you realize you really, I think that's where a little bit of the entrepreneurial bug first hit me. Like, you can't rely on other people for your employment forever. You got to have other things going. That's something you've always done, hence career plug, right? So what I did is I called for my network, right? So again, going to schools like Andover and Duke, it's not enough to go to these schools. You actually have to make a difference and impact while you're there. So the one thing about me I can say that's helped me is that people who know me like me, and I know a lot of people. So I was able to actually get a referral for another law firm to go back to Washington D.C. So I was in San Francisco, got a referral, go out to a different law firm, and then moved back to D.C., which I wanted to go anyway. So it worked out. But I think that's a lesson there. You can't sort of go through life, particularly go through college, university, or even high school, and not connect with people. Because again, connections I think are what is really going to kind of carry you through any part of your life, career or otherwise.
Yeah, totally agree. What's interesting is this morning I'm on a group text with some of our, fraternal brothers, and they
Mhm.
just mentioned this morning that they were, seeing something. I believe it was on CNBC, mentioning the Great Resignation and the number of young folks that are quitting and running to social media. I'll get into this separately on, a different episode, because yes, we believe in entrepreneurial pursuits, of course. What I think the issue is that there are a bunch of, folks in the 18 to, I would say, 35 range, who just have no idea the number of career options that exist. Um, they
Definitely.
still think, as we did as Gen Xers, like, you got to go to law school or med school or get an MBA. Some of that is fine. Some of it's unnecessary. Um,
100%.
you know, there are so many careers. If you have exposure to them, you can understand the options that exist within that career, the salary ranges, the lifestyle, um, and a lot of these careers are just, they're phenomenal, and can eventually lead to, maybe entrepreneurial pursuits. But what a friend of mine told me is that, look, Gene, not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and I agreed with her. And to some
Mhm.
extent, um, you cannot put your life's control in someone else's hands, but sometimes these careers will set you up to then chart a path
Correct.
entrepreneurially, and give you the foundation, give you the network, etc., give you the polish, the professionalism um, that's needed to then transfer those skill sets. So, um,
And Jay, that's why I think
what
this career plug is so important, right? I think you exposing people through this platform in really bite-sized chunks. Because you're right, there are so many different careers out there. Some are entrepreneurial, some are in the company, but the bottom line is the great diversity of things you can do. And I think this platform, this career plug platform, is going to be the conduit for that for a lot of people. So congrats to you
Agreed.
on creating this platform.
Agreed. I hope so. So, let's get right into kind of briefly what a lobbyist does in your summary, and then we could talk a little bit about maybe the lifestyle around that.
Absolutely. So a lobbyist, it is a very mysterious profession. I mean, people in sort of popular culture, it kind of the images, of someone kind of going up to Capitol Hill or state capitals and kind of handing over piles of money. That's actually not how it works. To be a lobbyist, so to back up a little bit, I worked on Capitol Hill for 4 years. I was counsel on the House Financial Services Committee during the financial crash of 2008. So when kind of the world melted down in the financial space, I was on the committee when Barney Frank was the chairman and worked on the Dodd-Frank legislation. So, I think it starts like any professional career. It starts with having expertise in a certain area. So I had expertise in financial services, in financial regulation and legislation. Really, the crucible of the financial crisis. That's really what set me up to become a lobbyist. And
That's
then
great.
also once because I was in that space, I of course had a wide range of people. Again, back to connections, people that I interact with. So it went from regulators to folks in the White House to CEOs of major companies to hedge funds. I mean, everyone had to kind of come through the committee at some point to seek relief or to get guidance on legislation. So I had a pretty wide network from that experience. So parlay that into working at Wells Fargo. I've been at Wells Fargo since 2010. In my day to day, I think the fun thing about my job is every day is different. So I think the core of my job is to go on Capitol Hill, represent the bank, Wells Fargo, in front of Congress. So both legislators and their staff, which are very important, as well as regulators. So I'm advocating for certain policy positions for the company, preparing executives to testify. Wells Fargo has been before Congress numerous times to testify in both the House and Senate Banking and Financial Services Committee, so preparing executives for testimony. And then also just telling the story of Wells Fargo's really impacting communities. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm flying down to Charlotte, North Carolina. Wells Fargo's having the golf championship, the Wells Fargo Championship down at Quail Hollow Golf Club. We're having our inaugural HBCU days. We're going to be entertaining HBCU presidents from Howard, Morehouse,
That's great.
Fayetteville State, all around the country. So I'm going to do that tomorrow and kind of interact with these folks and then connect those folks back to new members of Congress. So that's kind of like just in a nutshell, kind of what a lobbyist does. And it's a very diverse career. Every day is different. So that's kind of what I like about it.
So, in essence, like you stated, you go up to Capitol Hill and essentially, um, if there is specifically financial legislation or anything that would affect the financial industry,
Correct.
and specifically, Wells Fargo, but I'm sure any of the other big banks that would be affected, they all have, their own in-house lobbyists like you. And I know that that's a small team of probably 5 to 6, like
Yeah.
senior folks, right? So you make sure that legislation is, conducive to the corporation, um, but also um, promote financial health and other community benefits. Uh,
Correct.
because Wells Fargo is such a massive organization, it touches all across the country and in some instances the world. Um, but you're sort of tasked
Yeah.
with you're sort of
Yeah,
tasked
Jim,
with making sure. Go ahead.
no, so let me give you kind of two examples of that. You're absolutely right, first of all. So just give you a little context. So Wells Fargo has about 250,000 employees around the world. There's six federal lobbyists. So there's a team of six. You're absolutely right. Six of us are kind of charged with going interact with the federal government on Wells Fargo's behalf. So that's, so because of that, we have exposure to, the CEO and the C-suite when it comes to, hearing testimony or just general kind of, connecting with folks on the Hill. And then two examples. So one, as you all know, we just this morning, matter of fact, First Republic Bank was taken over by J.P. Morgan Chase. In the last few months, we had Silicon Valley Bank fail and Signature Bank fail. So in that context, my job was to go on Capitol Hill and explain to the staff and members of Congress why Wells Fargo is different. The fact that we're capitalized differently, the fact that we have regular stress tests, the fact that we have stronger regulatory requirements. So to give them confidence that there would be no contagion, right, in the industry writ large, but particularly with our bank. So the last few weeks, I've been going to Capitol Hill, kind of making that case with members of Congress. And then I'll give another example. About 2 years ago, this is kind of before even the kind of the George Floyd murder and the fact, when the corporate America sort of woke up to Black people's needs, if you will. I actually, because of my relationship with some of the what they call minority depository institutions, which are essentially Black-owned banks, which there are only out of like 3,500, federally deposit insured banks, only 20 are Black-owned. So because of my space and kind of knowing them in my previous life on Capitol Hill, I advocated for us, Wells Fargo, to invest about $50 million in equity financing to these banks. So not deposits, not loans, but equity financing. I was able to, convince our CEO and our C-suite to kind of get behind it. We made this commitment in March 2020 before, the George Floyd murder in May 2020. And that's an example of, again, using your influences and your reach and your experience to advocate for things that are important. In this case, saving the Black banking sector, which Wells Fargo was the first, not the last. After our example, some other banks have gone in and all done equity investments and done other things with Black banks. We were the first. And I think I had a small part to play in that.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Thank you for those kind of specific examples. Let's get to the good stuff, the more fun stuff. So there is
Absolutely.
a certain lifestyle that comes with, working for any large corporation. Um, I guess my question is this. No, somebody is not going to obviously start at your level at 25. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One, what do you recommend for anyone looking to become a lobbyist? Like, where do they start outside of, needing a 4-year college degree? I'm not sure an MBA or law degree is actually necessary. Uh, Clearly, there are lobbyists without law degrees or
Mm-hmm.
MBAs. Um, but do you think that those are necessary to arm yourself, or do you think, hey, if you can, you know, get your start a different way, um, is that something you would recommend?
Yeah, it's a good question, Gene. So I'd say a couple things. I'd say to be a lobbyist, at least on actually whether it's state or federal level, you definitely have to have experience in that branch of government, right? So I think you don't necessarily need a law degree or MBA, but you need to have had experience on Capitol Hill or in state capitals, or actually even city councils for that matter. So
Hmm.
I'd say, one, master your craft. I think in terms of lobbying public policy, be able to write, to communicate, and to persuade are really the key skills. So I'd say whatever level you are, master your craft. Make sure you're writing and communicating in a way that's clear, persuasive, and it's fact based, right? So I mean, when we go on Capitol Hill, I can't just kind of say things. I have to actually have some basis for what I'm saying, right? I have to have some facts and research, and also be able to anticipate the other side of the argument, right? This is where both of ours are lawyers by training. As we know, you have to be able to anticipate other sides of arguments to be able to effectively counteract them. So I think, mastering your craft, I think, is the first step. And then I think, again, I think it's really about kind of your personality and particularly in the lobbying game, your personality and the people knowing you. People have to like you. People have to want to put their confidence and trust in you and tell you things, right? I mean, lobbyists, the kind of the secret sauce of lobbying is to have information, to have it before other
That's
people
right.
do. So people have to trust you with that information and really understand that you are going to use it in a way that's going to be helpful. It's not going to embarrass people. It's going to move a particular ball forward. That kind of subtle skill takes years to build, but it's very important.
Agreed. Agreed. No, those are great examples. And now to the fun stuff.
Yes,
So
sir.
part of part of the lifestyle, um, I think, is the probably that any big company provides to some extent, and depending on your level. Um, but you, for example, you have been to the Super Bowl. You have carte blanche at events like the Congressional Black Caucus Week in DC annually. I have joined you on a number of events and been given access. It's this lifestyle that I don't think people understand. Listen, you're not on PJs, private jets, but you do get some first class access on flights. I would say, you live moderately, but you live very well. I think there's this misperception that like only entrepreneurs live really well or have some freedom. You have a pretty flexible schedule. um, you know, I'm not going to say that you live in a $1 million+ home, but listen, you do all right, right?
I do all right. I do all right. You're right, Gina. The lifestyle, particularly for someone who likes to kind of be out and about, lifestyle is fun. I'll just give you for this year alone, right? I have been to Miami. You and I had time in Los Angeles with a bunch of members of Congress, and it's fun. I'm able to get have access and exposure to things I wouldn't have before, and I think more important, I've gotten to know people, right? I mean, people you see on TV, whether they're politicians or actors or whoever, I've actually gotten to know them as people, right? And when you have that, because of my education background and training, but also because of a lot of luck, a lot of prayer to get in the situation, I've been able to kind of see and do things that I never thought I would be able to see or do, right? And so, I met multiple senators, people who I know, members of Congress, CEOs of major companies, foreign leaders who come through DC for things. I've met several African presidents, including actually the president of Ghana is my uncle's classmate, so I've gotten to know him a little bit. So it is nice to kind of be in this circle. Yeah, I'm not flying private jets or driving a Lamborghini, but I do okay. But more importantly, I have fun while I'm doing it, and I get to really be exposed to lots of different types of people and experiences that you don't get in sort of your average kind of career.
Agreed. Yeah, no, that's like a great lifestyle. And once again, we're not we are both in favor of entrepreneurial pursuits. I think we both also though think that any proper foundation, sometimes that may include at a bigger company, but it can be smaller, medium-sized companies. But
Absolutely.
the biggest thing is like social media and providing content, you have to bring value. That was something I don't think that
Yeah.
was instilled in my life early. But as long as you are creating value in some type of way, whether that is intellectual value, whether that, whatever value it is you're bringing to the table, it must be there. It must be respected. So, thank you for that. Any sort of last thoughts or advice for our audience at Career Plug? Um, I'm not sure
Yeah.
we want to, give your email or phone number out at all, but any sort of, yeah, just general last
Well,
advice
look,
on.
my first and most important thing: subscribe to Career Plug. Go on YouTube, subscribe to Career Plug. That's number one. You're gonna get great content like you're getting today from all kinds of different people. So subscribe to Career Plug. And I think my final advice, and I'm available on LinkedIn, Sanders Eladu. I'm the only Sanders Adu I think in the world. So if you go on LinkedIn, you can find me. But I think my last piece of advice is really just two pieces. One, again, just whatever you're doing, just be the best at it. Like study, research it. Make sure you are really standing behind your craft. That's I think point number one. And point number two is that's all great, but no one cares unless they know you, right? So make sure you kind of get out different types of experiences, do things that are maybe outside the norm, outside your comfort zone, and make sure you're expanding your network of people. I think you to do those two things, I think it'll take you pretty far.
Excellent, excellent. Um, so yes, please subscribe, punch the like button, do all of that punching and liking and all the things necessary. We're trying to grow this channel. Like I said at the beginning, I'm going to tap my personal resources for you guys. Bring on people you probably wouldn't have access to. Um, but we'll bring valuable content on various career paths. You have gotten a sense of what lobbyists do, the path and background to become one. So I want to just thank Sanders Adu, senior lobbyist at Wells Fargo,
Thank you.
for joining me. My first episode. Really appreciative of your time and patience with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again at some point as you continue your path.
Appreciate it, brother, and I look forward to the next career plug.
Okay. Thank you again.